So how they work, pretty simple. A module isn't really anything fancy. It is just Python accessible code that's stored in a file outside of your main script. It could be written in Python, and often they are written in Python, but perhaps even better in terms of what they can do, you can write a module for Python in a variety of different languages, which allows them to interface with all kinds of things, all kinds of devices, all kinds of data gathering equipment, sensors. Pretty much the world is your oyster as far as what you can do with these modules. So you can write them in all kinds of languages, including Python. But all it is really is just some code that is out there somewhere, usually on the same hard drive as your Python script, sometimes even in the same folder. But it is a package that you can install, and then you can import that into your script, and it allows you to have access to all kinds of additional functionality. So the advantages of using modules, what you might be wondering, other than just like extending what Python can do, there's some really practical advantages to writing your own modules as you're developing code. First thing is it makes your code more organized and easier to understand. If you've got a huge program, we've talked about using functions in this way. Breaking your code into smaller pieces makes it a little bit easier. But modules actually breaks your code into different files. So you can really hide all of those functions somewhere and really treat them like a black box, and they're not even part of your main code script except for that little import statement at the top. So that's really useful. It makes code more reusable. As you start getting into Python coding, and as you do more of it, especially if you do it as a professional software developer, what you will probably start doing is creating your own custom modules that you will then use for all kinds of different things. An example might be if you write a lot of programs that get input from a user via the command line, you might have functions that say, get a number from the user and return it to the main program. And you might store those in a module because then you can just reuse them all day long. So you might have all kinds of reusable code in a library that you create and keep for yourself. And if you do something that's really, truly outstanding and innovative, then you might put it out there for the rest of the Python world to use. And then you become famous. People offer you jobs and that sort of thing. So, and the last thing is that it makes code more maintainable. As long as I keep that black box idea of functions and I really stick to that, if I have a function that inputs one thing and outputs another, if I pass it a parameter and it outputs a certain type of data, and if I have that in a module somewhere and I use it all throughout all kinds of my programs, I can change the entire functionality of the inside of that black box. As long as I don't change the input and the output, I can change the whole thing of how it works, and it won't break any of my code. So I could use that same module in 25 different programs, but maybe I want to update the code to make it more efficient or more powerful or add some extra functionality. If the input and output are the same, it just keeps working. That's the great thing about writing smart modular code. So when I'm creating modules, it's really, really nice to have all of these things. And we've seen random as a module. So if I do print random dot randint, oops, there we go, randint 1 to 10, then it's going to print a random number between 1 and 10. That's what that function in that module does. Now, random is a standard Python module, meaning it's not part of the main piece of Python. It's not a function that exists in the main branch of Python, but it's a standard module. So when you install Python, you get random all the time. We don't have to do anything to install that package or anything. I can refer to random, but I do still have to import it because it's code that's outside. It's an extension of the functionality of Python.